All right, so welcome into today's show. So it's an exciting one today because I'm joined by a few of the members from For the Love of Q barbecue team. And these guys are coming all the way from South Africa. So I think this is actually the first guests that I've had on the show outside of the US. So pretty exciting stuff, but I want to welcome in William Plotz and Gerhard van Niekerk. Welcome, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having us.
So interestingly enough, to give our listeners some context, because I know our listeners are probably like, how in the world did you connect with passionate barbecue fanatics all the way halfway across the globe in South Africa? And the answer to that, the simple answer is social media. They actually reached out and educated me on a few different things, mainly meat stock, which is something I just learned about and I really want to go to it. And they're going to be going to it. So we're going to camp out on that. But I always like to start the show talking about journey. And so I want to hear from both of you guys, both William and Gerhard. Let's talk about journey, right? So we'll start with you, William. How did you get into how did you get into this crazy barbecue journey where all of a sudden you're going to be going to Australia in May?
Well, I'm actually from Australia. Well, I'm originally South African and I live in Australia now. We've been here for about 23 years. And but I was brought up with fry, which is like barbecue, with fire.
Yep.
So it's probably about 6-7 years ago, I got involved with some smoking, and I loved it, enjoyed it, do it nearly every day. I work for a company now called Southwest Barbecue here in Australia, and I'm a meat slinger at night.
So what does that mean exactly? I'm curious. What is a meat slinger?
So basically, I trim up all the meats, put them in the smoker, look after the smoker, and then when it comes to service time, I cut the meat up, portion, serve. I work in the kitchen.
Love it. So you're literally living out your passion. That's awesome.
120%. Yeah, 120%. Love it.
That is awesome. And how about you, Gerhard?
I started about 4 or 5 years ago, starting smoking in a vertical, and then I saw it like a rub. Started with a rub, and then I wanted to make the rub South African, and I asked around friends, Big George, which is the other team member from South Africa. I asked around, how can I make it more South African? And he said, add coriander. So I added coriander, started giving it to friends. Friends liked it, and they asked me, I'm gonna start selling it. So and then I got a horizontal smoker, reverse flow, start on that thing. We participated in a few competitions. Some we did good, some we didn't do that good. And then I was sending spies to Australia, and they got heard of us. We got invited, and we built a team from there.
I love that. And what he's talking about is the meat stock, which if you haven't checked out, looks absolutely amazing. I believe it's the first week in May of 2023 where that kicks off. If you just Google meat stock, you'll find all kinds of cool things about it. And I love the story about how you both came together into this crazy world of barbecue. It's interesting to me. One thing that was mentioned is, you said, Gerhard, you said, how do I make, the barbecue more South African? And I wanted to camp out on that for a second because I'm really curious and fascinated by the different types of barbecue that exist throughout the globe, because to me, there's really no right or wrong way to do it. As long as it's good, then it's great, yeah. Right? So what makes, just from your standpoint, Gerhard, what makes South African barbecue South African?
What we stand out is we use obviously good cuts of meat, proper raised. And I think we use more fire in an open barbecue than other people will do, like gas. I know gas is big in other countries. We will normally use wood in an open barbecue. And I think that stands out for us. We're still relatively new to smoking, to low and slow, but we're getting there. We're getting there slowly but surely.
So if I heard you correctly, then basically it sounds like South African barbecue, traditional South African barbecue, is over an open flame with wood And I'm guessing it's hot and fast, as they say. Is that right?
It's longer than low and slow, that I can tell you. It's not that fast, but it's definitely faster than low and slow smoking.
Excellent. And then, so William, you're living in Australia. What's the difference there? What makes Australian barbecue Australian?
Well, the only Australian barbecue I really knew when we first came here was, gas. I didn't know what a gas barbecue was, but yeah, it's basically like the fire cooking only sort of started originating here and becoming popular about just 12 years ago. So they basically started doing, a couple of Americans started doing the low and slow here in Australia, and then it just took off. It all started actually in a caravan park where they started doing competitions there. And Jay Beaumont, who is he's one of the founders of Meat Stock, he basically just took it and ran with it. And he's created this amazing event that all people from around the world can come. I know in Melbourne this year, Loot and Booty, they'll be competing.
Yep.
Which will be good. But yeah, no, it's definitely something new to Australians, that it's just sort of started and it's becoming very popular. It's a big marketing thing here.
I love that. That is so cool. Now I'm curious, in the United States, there's, for example, I live in the South, so I live in the Augusta, Georgia area. And in this area, when people say barbecue, that means pork, specifically pork butt, pork shoulder, pulled. So you could either make a sandwich or a taco or whatever. Where I'm from originally, which is in the middle part of the United States in St. Louis, Missouri, when you say barbecue, typically that means you're cooking over, you're cooking over like a Weber charcoal grill. It's not low and slow. It's pork steaks. It's ribs. If you go to Texas, it's all beef. When they say barbecue in Texas, it's beef. So I'm curious to hear, both of your takes. What is the popular, or what is the, when you say barbecue in South Africa, for example, what is that? What does that mean? What kind of meat does that mean?
I think, let's see if I can jump in there. I don't think we got a preferred type of meat, but popular here is beef.
Yeah.
And sausage, good sausage stands out. But I don't think there's a particular pork, chicken, beef, lamb. We kind of everything.
You like it all?
Yeah, like it all. There's no different parts that have different styles or different methods, or different types of meat, or different, beef or pork or whatever.
And how about you, William? In Australia, I'm guessing it's probably beef, right? Is the front runner?
Yeah, so here they call it snags on a barbie, which is just a sausage. But basically, like, especially around like our place here, if we say barbecue, it's more about the gathering of people that come around. And but yeah, I love anything from lamb. Lamb is very popular here. We're definitely a lamb country. But I mean, it's all about the versatile of what you can cook and what people really prefer. Brisket is becoming very popular here now because people are starting to taste the low and slow kind of meats. And I mean, pulled pork is always the winner. You can't go wrong pulled pork with a good barbecue sauce, But the most popular here would be a sausage.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, it's just a sausage on a piece of bread with tomato sauce and onion.
So something that's interesting to me is this idea of low and slow. You've brought it up a couple of times, William, and I actually saw it on the Meat Stock website. And I thought it was interesting because it had low and slow, and in parentheses, it had American style or United States, something of that effect, which I had up until I read that, didn't realize that the low and slow method was considered more of an American way to barbecue. So I found that pretty pretty interesting because I think what started to happen, at least in the competitive world of barbecue in the United States, is a lot of teams are going to the hot and fast method where they're cooking on a drum at 300, 325 degrees, and they're cooking, what would normally take 12 to 14 hours, they're cooking it in 3. So it was just very interesting for me to see that, and it made me take a step back and just think about the different nuances of how we go about preparing meats, etc. So sausage is awesome. I love sausage. I think it'd be kind of difficult to do sausage low and slow. It may not be very good. Might be a little too smoky. But speaking of smoke and all things barbecue, what I'm curious, what types of wood are you using when you're barbecuing? And we'll start with you, William.
Yeah, I use iron bark to smoke with. It's a very hard wood. It gives up good flavor. It's very sweet. But yeah, if I don't have that, I can use like a red gum, which is another hardwood that we use. It's got good flavor in it. But yeah, they're the only 2 woods I really use. Otherwise, I'd use charcoal and apple pieces.
Sure, I love that. And how about in South Africa? What kind of wood are you using down there?
We use oak because it's available.
Right.
And we got some few fruit trees that we can use, like peach, lemon. We don't have much we do have apple, but it's not like freely available. You have to look for it. Also, we can get our hands on cherry, but we normally use our barbecue wood we'll use on the red meats, and your oak and cherry and fruits on the light meats.
Right. I love that. So let's talk about gathering, right? I think it was William that talked about, barbecue means more of a gathering, a social event, friends, family coming together to break bread, have good food, maybe some good drinks, et cetera. And I agree. I think the beautiful thing about barbecue is, it does, for me, invoke memories of, the summer days where you have everybody gathering and having a good time together. So it's a good segue into meat stock, right? Because meat stock is a huge gathering of I'm assuming tens of thousands of people that attend this thing. But I wanted to camp out on that because it's your team was invited, which is a pretty big deal, correct?
Yeah, it is big. Yeah.
So what do you think? I'm sure there was application process, et cetera, but what do you think helped propel you to be able to be in that realm, right, and compete at a huge international barbecue festival?
Oh well, it's basically I mean, Jay, he's a open guy. He's open for people to come in and join the big festival and the big taking off of meat stock. So I mean, he's always open. He knows that we all love barbecue. We call ourselves the barbecue family here in Australia. Like we're all over states when we get together and do competitions. We're all family at the end of the day. We all love the same passion, and it's the same for people from overseas. They love doing the same thing. It's just different style, a different flavor profile. So it's good to get them all together and see what it's like to do an international competition.
I love that. So let's camp out on it. So you guys are going to be heading up there and you're going to be competing. Is this is your first time at meat stock? Is that right?
My first time, yes.
Okay. So with the competition, are you also going to be vending or how does that work?
No, so basically with the competition, we'll just be it's the same, almost the same as the KCBS. We've got all our proteins that we put together with our brisket pork. I think there's a lamb category. We will just be competing. We won't be vending. We can do showcasing at the front of hanging meats, open fire cooking, live fire cooking, and things like that. But it'll be more, we'll be focused on basically just getting everything right. And presentation is one of the biggest things out for it, making it everything work. But we're just going to be there and have a good time. Like the rule is at a barbecue competition that you have to have a drink with every single team in the competition. So it's good fun.
So how many teams are going to be there? That's the $1 million question.
I think there's spaces for 52 teams at the minute.
That's a lot of drinks.
Yeah.
But maybe the small glass is good.
Oh, fair enough. We didn't say what size drinks they are. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. So you guys are going to go out there in May, and you're going to compete on an international stage. For you, just where you are right now mentally, right? This is one thing that I focus on anytime I'm, preparing for a competition. Mindset is a big deal to me, right? Because I think mindset drives a lot of what actions you take, and those actions drive a lot of your results. What, from a mindset standpoint, what are you guys doing to get in that frame of mindset? Are you practicing? Is it repetition? I mean, what does your prep look like?
Yeah. That's a hard one. At the minute, there's no practicing happening at the minute because I basically do it all the time, like my brisket and pork ribs. Like I do it a lot of the times, but I mean, when you come to competition, it's a big difference between catering and competition style. So basically, I'm trying to catch up the guys from South Africa because they're not quite used to like the sort of competition style of what the presentation should be like, or the trimmings, or how to trim, what to trim. I know Gerhard, there's not much brisket, or like there's different kind of brisket that they have in South Africa. So it'll be interesting to see when we all get together. I know James, he's in the same boat. He's actually going to go compete in February in America with another KCBS team, so he can sort of just get a kind of idea of what competition style barbecuing is all about. At the end of the day, it's flavor profiles, your presentation, the doneness. So I mean, it'll be interesting. It will be mind-boggling. But normally I'll have a board up that's got times on it, time limits, and we try and stick in between that time frame for hands-ins. But I think once the guys get over here and we put our heads together, we'll work out how we are going to prep and do everything together.
That's exactly right. I think that's one thing, especially with I think you said there's 5 people on your team total, which is a fairly good sized team, at least by our standards here. And so communication, knowing your roles, all of that is extremely important. And just one thing I wanted to clarify for the meat stock, is this a KCBS sanctioned event? Because I've heard you mention that several times.
No, so it's like KCBS. We do have KCBS here in Australia, but we call it ABA, which is Australian Barbecue Alliance. So it's a total different association.
Right. But similar very similar.
Yeah, so with the chicken thighs and that, we take off, we scratch the fat off, we dry the skin, we stick it back on, and then we cook away the same kind of. And your brisket, you have your 6 slices, and then you burn ends.
That's exactly right. So for you, Gerhard, in South Africa, I'm curious, what are the sanctioning barbecue bodies there in South Africa?
At the moment, we don't have much because we're still very young to barbecue or slow smoking. I don't think there's one official one that I know of. There might be one, but competitions, we don't get to compete in competitions that often. It's not like the rest of the world. You have to organize it yourself, and then there's the other team member normally will organize and get teams together to compete, but nothing as fancy as in America and Australia, New Zealand, Netherlands. It's we're not there yet. And that's when the invite came to our way. I grab it. So I want to take that knowledge and I want to bring it back home, and maybe I can make a difference this side. And William said, our brisket's bone in. We get a brisket with a bone in, I want to see a proper brisket and come to our butchers and show them our brisket, what it should look like. That's what I want to do. Like I said earlier, just bring that knowledge back to South Africa.
So it sounds like then just long term for you, Gerhard, it's you want to help grow the sport in South Africa. Is that right?
That's correct. We want to compete against the rest, the best of the best, but the only way we can get there is to have our own competitions, and that we don't have that often.
Right. Why do you think that is? Is it no one is really willing to organize it, or is it just a variety of different reasons?
I think the main reason is because it's still relatively new to South Africa. They will still do the open fire barbecue instead of low and slow because they don't want to spend 12 hours, 14 hours waiting for a piece of meat, I think if you change the mindset, as soon as you change someone's mindset, you might change someone else's mindset, and that's how it grows. And I think that's important. That's what we want to try and do, but we can't do it on our own. I need someone else, a few other people to do it with me, to do it, to make it work.
Right. And you not only that, but you need, the organization and the logistics and the planning and, all of that goes into it. It's very difficult for one person to manage all of that and also still keep barbecue fun. Because after all, if it's not fun, my opinion is, well, if barbecue is no longer fun, then you really should take a step back and look at, okay, well, what are you doing to not enjoy it anymore? Which is one thing that I've pondered, and that is potentially a restaurant or a food truck. My hesitation is I don't want it to become a job. So
Very true.
Is that speaking of? Is that do you ever have an ambition or a goal to eventually have your own restaurant or food truck?
So yeah, we got one company that asked we must show them the low and slow. They want to also get a smoker, and we will be going through to them and show them how it works. So there's a start, and that's what I want to do with other people. Then I start the low and slow smoking in the restaurant, and they can do it themselves.
And then it just spreads from there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And so I know you guys are on Facebook, and for our listeners, definitely take some time and connect with these guys. Huge barbecue fanatics, as I like to call us. But check them out on Facebook. They are going to have Instagram here soon, but for now they have Facebook. It's at For the Love of Q BBQ team. Check them out and what they're doing. I know there are some fundraising efforts as well. So you guys can go to Meatstock, right? Did you want to camp out on that for a second? How can people support this, right? This is your first time. So if our listeners feel so inclined, how can they support, your efforts to get out there?
Yeah, like you said earlier, they can go look on the Facebook pages. The link for the fundraising is there. There's two links. There's one for myself and one for the rest of the team. I don't know about William at the moment, but there's definitely one for me and also my Facebook page. But I don't know if I should get my Facebook page out there because it might be difficult to pronounce. I know I might send it to you. But yeah, it's at Vleisvryf on Facebook. And then they can get the link from there. It's almost like GoFundMe, but it's just an African version of GoFundMe.
That's cool. So again, if any of our listeners, want to support the efforts, please check out their Facebook page and by all means, support the efforts of these guys going to what arguably is one of the largest barbecue festivals, competitions, parties, whatever you want to call it, in the world. I can't think of anything that's on this scale necessarily with this many people. And it's right in the heart of I believe it's in Sydney, Australia. Is that right?
Yeah, it's one of them.
So I've heard great things about Sydney. I've never been myself. My father's been many times. He's always said great things about Sydney. So great location, great food, great people, and a lot of different methods of cooking. And I think, again, I go back to there really is no right or wrong way to barbecue. I think the only requirement, the technical definition, I think the only requirement is it has to involve fire of some sort. You know, other than that, that's pretty much it. I know, when I was in my younger years, many years ago as a child, I lived in the South Pacific in American Samoa, and they would bury a pig in the ground, and that's how they would heat up lava rocks with taro leaves, and they would leave it in there for 24 hours, 36 hours. So it's just very fascinating to see all these different methods, and I applaud both of you for sticking your neck out there. I think Gerhard said it. If you want to be the best, you have to compete against the best. Period. So, I would applaud you guys for sticking your neck out there, because anytime you do that, you could fail, which is not a bad thing, right? But I also think it's really cool to hear that you're wanting to especially in Gerhard's case, wanting to bring the knowledge back to South Africa is it's special, because if you really think about it, most of what we know about barbecue was handed down throughout the decades and the centuries.
Yeah, knowledge is free. You don't have to. You can share it because you got it for free. You might as well share it with someone else because it's free.
That's exactly right. Always pay it forward. I love that mentality. And again, for our listeners, we're chatting with 2 of the 5. There's 5 team members, correct?
Yep.
So we're chatting with 2 of the 5 team members of For the Love of Q barbecue team. They're heading to Meatstock in May, Sydney, Australia. First time ever. So they're sticking their necks out there, which I think is really, really cool. We've got William Plotz and Gerhard van Niekerk. Guys, final question. It has to do with some words of wisdom, right? Because obviously both of you have been barbecuing for longer than most people. Here's the question. What words of wisdom do you have for listeners that are just getting into barbecue, regardless of where they might live in the world?
Well, I always tell people, it's about fire management. Learn how your fire works, temperature control. That way you can work it. If you're doing hot and fast, you're putting more coal in, more wood. It burns quicker. But if you want to go low and slow, learn how your unit works. Work out your firebox first before you start using it. Basically, just try and find it out like it's a car, like when you're first driving a manual, or how your clutch works. You know how your car works, so I'll take it the same as barbecuing. I know how my barbecue works and what I need to do to keep my hours up. What big logs do I need to put in? Just basically, and just have fun.
Great advice. How about you, Gerhard?
Yeah, I would start with get yourself proper meat. Because if you go low and slow, you want tender meat. So get yourself a good rub. YouTube, look at a lot of videos, build up your knowledge, because meat is expensive. You don't want to waste it. So do your research. And don't always go for safety heat temperatures. Safety doesn't mean it's tender. Rather go for tender. To protest or feel if it's tender, rather than doing a safety temperature, internal temperature. And yeah, like William said, just have fun.
I love that. Great parting words of wisdom from two guys that are, in different countries, halfway across the globe, and have come together over barbecue, and we'll be getting together at Meatstock here in May. So, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming on the show. I thought it was a fascinating discussion. I learned a lot. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
No, thank you, Kurt. Thank you for having us on.
Thank you very much, Kurt.